Okay, welcome to our New York Giants Preservation Society meeting for tonight. What is it? July 23rd with the great Alex Pavlovic. Alex has a brand new book that he's going to be discussing. Alex does everything with the Giants, beat writer, pre and post game, show host, podcaster on his own podcast, and also with Cole Kuiper. And now he is an author of a fabulous new book that's getting really rave reviews. We will turn to Alex in a minute or two. Just have to go over some things with you. Next week, we have a new meeting scheduled for Tuesday with Bill Swisher. Bill is lives upstate in New York and is the organizer of the John McGraw Historical Marker Project that is going to be celebrated next Saturday, August 2nd. So Bill is going to come on Tuesday to talk about this. It is in between Syracuse and Binghamton in Truxton, New York, where McGraw spent his childhood with his family. Also, next Thursday, I don't know what's going on, if the Giants are holding an event at Affinities or not, but I'm waiting to hear from Dieter Selig. I might host a thing there. If not, I might just show up if anybody wants to talk Giant baseball there, meet some of us never met in person. So that'll be
What time?
something to do if you're interested.
What time?
Also, next weekend is the Giants and Mets series in Citi Field. I plan on going to a couple of those games, so I will let
Where
you
are
know
your
about that. I
where
don't
are
know
your tickets on
who's talking.
Saturday?
Okay. Lastly, I got to share something with you.
I can't hear
Let's
you.
see. Okay. All right. This is where we met at the Polo Grounds, and this sign has caused a lot of grief for a lot of people. It is now going to be fixed, provided that we find somebody to fix it. All the red tape has vanished. I've been in touch with Michael Mays. This and the home plate plaque hopefully will be refurbished. If any of you know any restoration companies, please email me because we would like to get them involved in this project. There you could see you can't even read the sign anymore. This development was built on the location that Willie Mays and the Giants made famous. Let's keep it beautiful. That's pretty funny. The sign has been up there roughly 60 years. You could see up here in the corners, it's just, terrible. And you could barely read it. And, Willie Mays' name is on this, and beloved figure to all Giant fans and to New Yorkers, and it should not be this way. Let me just see if I could find the other. Okay, just let me get this. Okay. Here is the other issue that we're facing, the Polo Grounds, New York Giants, Mets home plate where it would have been. So, and the picture is all grainy, but this is in their offices. This is Willie Mays and Mayor John Lindsay when this building first, this plaque first went on the building. So it is not only something incumbent that we keep Willie Mays alive here in New York, but it's also history, and history cannot be should not be forgotten. Okay, so without further ado, this I tried to get the book. It was out of stock at the time, but this is Alex's brand new book, and Alex is going to talk about it. Alex has been on before. I was fortunate enough to meet him last July at the Willie Mays Celebration of Life. First time I met him in person. And Alex, I got to tell you, I never envisioned you being so tall. You are. I thought this be this little guy smaller than me, and he's towering over me.
It's
So
only 6'2".
anyway, let's all welcome Alex Pavlovic to the New York Giants Preservation
Thank
Society.
you.
Alex is going to talk about his book. Ask him questions about the book. I hope you ask him questions about the book, and then I'm sure he will take questions about the 2025 Giants and the trading deadline, etc. Alex,
Yeah, so
the floor is yours.
well, this is my fourth or fifth event, I think, in the last week, and all the other ones I had a co-host, so I might rope you into this. I they've kind of asked me questions, so I'm happy to answer people's questions about the book, about Giants history, and also mostly I heard you guys chatting a little bit as I was logging on here. Very happy to answer anything. I know Gary, you and I have talked about me coming on just to generally talk about the Giants again. So anything you guys would like, anything that's been bugging you about this current team. It's
Nice.
interesting that you showed the plaque there because that was actually the one of the first things I did after signing to write the book. We went to New York, and I went in and saw all of that. And the original version of the book, which I had to cut 30,000 words from at the end and had to cut a lot. The original version actually started with my experience that I wrote an introduction, which ended up getting cut, but it was my experience going there and kind of seeing the plaque and seeing, the school there and the mural with Willie and all of that, and seeing people at the same time getting Ubers and everything modern, but everything that was old. So interesting timing that you would put that up there. But yeah, I wrote a book. It goes back to 1958. It is heavy on my experience, which is 2012. Two of the three titles I was a beat writer for. And a lot of people who are still around, luckily, Will Clark, Mike Krukow, Dwayne Kuiper, all these guys from the 80s, the 90s. I tried to focus on that as much as I could. Unfortunately, Gary, you mentioned I saw you at the Willie Mays event last year. I think I've seen you since, but um, unfortunately, last year, as I was writing it, both Willie and Orlando passed away. So it kind of changed, especially the Willie chapter changed kind of the tenor of what I was going to write about him, and ended up just kind of doing a dedication to him, people's experiences with meeting him. I think that seems to be one of the most popular chapters just because there's a lot of stories from Giants people about how much he loved baseball and how much he was there and how generous he was with his time and with not just his time, but one of my favorite stories I heard was Michael Morse telling me Willie calls him over one night after a loss and Michael didn't really want to talk and he said, but it's Willie Mays, so I have to go say hi. And he said, Michael, I heard you just had a baby girl. And he said, yeah. And he gave him one of his jerseys from his playing days and signed it and said, well, this is going to put her through college. So it was a lot of that. It was fun to hear all that. And then, as you guys know, I discovered did not have to cover a whole lot through like the 1970s and early 80s. But yeah, I think I want to open up to questions more than anything because I see one hand up already, and it's probably the easiest way to do that instead of me just filibustering. Since I'd prefer people just read the book and get the stories that way.
Alex, first of all, what is the best way to get the book?
Well, as you mentioned, it's the good news is there's been a huge reaction to it. The bad news is there's been a huge reaction to it. So they sold out of hardcovers in a couple days. They are getting more hardcovers and they are moving on to paperback as well. So those will be, I think if you order it on Amazon now, you get it in the next week. Paperback will be coming at the start of August. If you are, I've heard from a lot of people who would prefer to order from elsewhere, which is totally fair. If you are, yeah, Barnes and Noble has it. Triumph was the publisher. They have it. I know local bookstores in the Bay Area have it, but I think a lot of you guys are probably not here. But yeah, it should be widely available again in a few days. But Giants fans, I think, I chose a good season to write a book. They're excited. Attendance is up, and people were excited right away. So it's
Alex,
pretty quickly.
we have a lot of people in here from San Francisco. Are you planning on doing book signings at I guess the local places in San Francisco or at the ballpark?
Yeah, I did a couple last week. I'm in the process of putting one together at the ballpark in August. I think I'll do one on the peninsula somewhere in August as well. And it's tricky timing right now because the trade deadline's in 8 days. So I'm kind of doing both. But in August and September, I think we'll have some more, and I'll make sure to get those to you, and also everywhere I talk about baseball, I try to promote those.
My other question for you is I saw some other authors write about their teams with the franchise. Is this like a thing that MLB started, or and they chose you, or did you reach out to them and say, "Hey, I want to be your guy"?
Yeah, it's the publisher, which is Triumph. I'm sure a lot of you guys own Andrew Baggerly's books. They were the ones who made those. And they started with the Yankees and the Red Sox, and then they moved on to, I think I was right after the Cubs, maybe. There was a bit of a delay because I kept telling them it's maybe let's wait until things are a little bit better for the Giants. So we ended up choosing a great time, I think, but it was originally supposed to come out last year. So I think the Blue Jays beat me as well, but they have done those. And for people who are local, I think there's a 49ers one that's out right now too. So it is, they're doing a lot of them. They approached me and said, "Would love you to write the Giants version."
Terrific. And my last question about the book is, I heard so many people give it great accolades, and you deserve kudos for doing it. I heard people mention part two.
Yeah, I had a Giants official text me the day it came out and congratulate me and said, "Are you going to write a second one?" And I told him I'll write another one when you guys win another one. So I think that's the deal I've made is that when they win another title, maybe I might have talked myself into doing one of those
Wonderful.
championship season books, but that's up to them. So
Well, I can't wait to get the book.
thank you.
I got to ask you a question. Who's pitching Sunday?
I would start Carson Seymour.
Okay.
I don't know who will start. I was mildly intrigued
Over,
by
can you mute for me?
I'm
Let's see.
sorry.
what was that? I would just say I was mildly intrigued by what I saw from him finishing out Tuesday's game, and it's either him or Wisenhunt who's next in line. So I think I would give him a shot and see if you could catch lightning in a bottle.
What will your day be like on Thursday? Since you're not going to be in New York with us, what are you going to be doing as far as the deadline?
It's interesting. We're usually at the ballpark, but it's a full day off. It's a travel day for the Giants, so I might still go to the ballpark, just be nearby uh, team executives if something happens. But I don't know. That's up to Buster. I think the good news with the Devers thing, it completely stunned me and it interrupted my dinner at Dodger Stadium. But the good news is it got that big one out of the way. So. I don't know that there's going to be another blockbuster, but I think he'll do something else.
Could their pitcher on Sunday not be on the current roster and not in the minor leagues?
I'd be surprised just because that'd be awfully quick to it's possible, I guess. I think they'd have to really get it done in the next day or two and have someone come to San Francisco and be in line to start that game. These things usually, Devers was the exception. These things usually, I usually plan for like the deadline's on Thursday, so starting like Tuesday, I'm on high alert. But Buster surprised us once already. He moved fast, and he moved fast with the Adames too. So he seems to be someone who doesn't like to wait around.
And I got three players. I'm just throwing it out at you. I'm not a general manager. Bullpen, another lefty pitcher. The guy on the Braves today, Dylan Lee, was very impressive. Any thoughts of the Giants going after him? I know the Diamondbacks are shopping their outfielders. Lourdes Gurriel, he's a good hitter. He's a clutch hitter, and he's right-handed. And I know Patrick Bailey is hitting better, but if they were to go for a backup, Travis d'Arnaud. Am I out of my mind on any of that stuff? Or these?
No, I don't. I think especially the left-handed. I think they will get a left-handed reliever. They'll find somebody. Um, yeah, I don't worry as much about backup catcher because it's backup catcher starts once a week in September. I think who is the third? Gurriel.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, this is just me personally, and I don't know how Buster feels. I think he probably feels the same way. Any resources they have, and they've already traded Kyle Harrison, they've already traded their 2024 first round pick. They've already committed 260 million to Rafi Devers. I know they're not comfortable with where they're at payroll wise. Any additional resources they have, for me, it would just be entirely pitching. So I don't worry as much about I don't worry as much about the lineup. Either Devers and Adames and Chapman are going to hit and you're going to be fine, or they're not going to hit and you're going to miss the playoffs. So I don't worry as much about anything other than pitching right now.
Terrific. And lastly, Alex, why don't you tell everybody we know about the book and the people in San Francisco can watch you on the pre and post, but your podcast, how do they get to them?
Yeah, the Giants Talk podcast. Anywhere you find your podcast, I think most people listen on iTunes, but we're on YouTube, we're on iTunes, we're on Spotify. So I do it with Dwayne Kuiper's son, Cole. We're going to record in about 4 hours here. So it's a lot of fun. It's been cool at the book signings. I've met a lot of podcast listeners as well.
And your solo one, how did that come about?
The YouTube?
Yes,
Oh, that was just me. Boredom.
they're very good. I enjoy them. That's why I'm
That
asking.
was, I think a lot of people were doing it, and it was me realizing there's always kind of a gap. The interesting thing about baseball is, as you guys know, there's a game every day, and sometimes there's this gap from like we podcast on Sunday night and then again on Thursday morning, and they extend Bob Melvin on Monday, So I'm like, there's nowhere really, there's other places for me to get my thoughts off, but that was like and I know the most viewed YouTube one I have was when they traded for Devers, and it was because I knew the podcast will post on Monday morning, but it's Sunday night. I can have this up in 15 minutes. So just another way to reach people. I think what I've learned is that people have all different ways of consuming media. So
And
maybe some people prefer YouTube.
how is the boy?
He is good. I'm hoping he doesn't interrupt. He's about 2 years old now, so he's up with mom right now. So
Best of luck with the book, and thanks for
thank
all
you.
you do for us Giant fans here on the East Coast and
Thanks,
and,
Gary.
and California. Mars, you're up.
Hi, Alex.
Hi.
I ran into you downstairs around the Giants locker room, and I mentioned Gary and the New York Giants Preservation Society. So I had to look up because I'm only 5'6". But but anyway, I'm one of the few in this club that saw the Giants play in the Polo Grounds. Willie was my idol. They left when I was 10 years old. But here's the questions I wanted to ask you about the
Yeah.
book. Who is the publisher, and what is the overview, and what was cut?
The publisher is Triumph. What do you mean by what is the overview?
Well,
The,
I mean, where do you begin and where do you
oh,
end?
I begin with 2012 for a couple reasons. One, Brandon Crawford wrote the foreword for me, and it felt like it flowed with his story into 2012. The other reason is I was around. I was a beat writer for two of the three title teams. I was Andrew Baggerly's backup for the third, and I know 2010 is the historic one. I find the 12 season to be the most fascinating, just in a lot of ways. And the postseason run and how close they were to being eliminated in Cincinnati and St. Louis, and then to go and sweep the Tigers. And then even aside from that, I mean, Buster was MVP that year. He came back from the ankle injury and becomes MVP. Crawford becomes the everyday shortstop. Belt kind of becomes a guy. So it was a really interesting season. A lot of Melky Cabrera gets suspended. So I started the book there just because of my interests of that season and some of the stories that I do TV with Sergio Romo and George Contos and some guys who were on that team and told me some stuff I didn't know before. And then what got cut, yeah, I turned in way too much to the publisher. So I think what got cut was a lot of individual things in chapters, and I keep joking. Gary asked if I'm going to write a second one. I keep joking with people I'm like a third of the way there because I have all these stories that didn't get in. I think the one that stands out to me the most is I did really want to write an entire chapter on Ron Wotus, who has been a Giant for 4 decades. And I think people didn't notice last year. Bob Melvin put him in the dugout as well at the end of the season. So he goes back to Dusty. He was the only person that Gabe kept when he took over. And then Bob Melvin comes in and he wants Ron Wotus around. So I find his career remarkable. And I've told Ron this. I mean, I ended up folding him into another chapter, but I originally wrote an entire chapter on his career and his background and how he became, one of the longest tenured people in baseball history.
Thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you. It was great to meet you.
Same here.
Alex, when I met you, I saw Ron Wotus and I just said to him, thank you. And he was like, well, what are you thanking me for? He was an integral part of those three championships that I never in my life thought I'd ever see won.
Yeah.
I
And
waited 40 plus years and bam, we win. And then 3-5. It was just an amazing run.
it was one thing I wrote in the book, and I wish I had more time to expand on. And I know Andy did a great job with his and was able to give these guys some love, but it is kind of it's pretty rare that if you think about, it's Ron Wotus and it's Rags and it's Flan and it is this coaching staff that I think in a lot of ways was as famous as some of the players. So it's a good group and one that I was happy to be able to include.
Great. Dixie, you're up.
Thank you very much. Hello, Alex.
Hi.
Hello from Fenway Park. Since you cut 30,000 words means you weren't lacking material.
Yeah.
My question is, what was the hardest chapter or topic to cover in the book?
The hardest thing for me, and I think, well, I'll say two things. One, I didn't really know how to attack like Willie Mays and Willie McCovey and some of these guys. I have had entire books written about them. And how do you distill Willie Mays into 12 or 15 pages? So that was difficult a little bit. And I think Gary and I actually exchanged a lot of emails over the course of this because for me, I was born in 1985. I watched my first Giants game probably in like 92, 93. I've been on the beat since 2012, but anything before, I obviously have an understanding of a lot of it, but I wanted to make sure that if someone read the book, they wouldn't go like, he really kind of skimmed over the 60s and he wrote a ton about 2016, but nothing about 1962. So I wanted to make sure I did all that research and so I reached out to Gary a few times just to see if there were people I could talk to. I got a bunch of other books that people have written, and then really the thing that kind of helped me break through there in a lot of ways was the Giants have basically an archives. It's a secret spot here in the Bay Area. They have every newspaper from the 50s, from the 60s, um, from all of those seasons, and so I got to go through and they had me out there and I got to go through and read about some of these games and read more about Marichal, read more about Gaylord Perry. I got to find some of their scouting reports and things like that. So that closed a lot of gaps for me. I think that was difficult just because unfortunately a lot of people the coolest part for me was I got to sit with Juan Marichal for a few innings during a game one night and ask him about his career, but a lot of people have passed away, unfortunately. So when I'm trying to tell new stories, it wasn't always easy to find people to go to.
Dixie, thank you. Mr. Coleman, you are up.
Hi, Alex.
Hi.
You were kind enough to do a selfie with me in the tunnel earlier this year, so I thank you for that. I've got two questions, one about the current Giants and one about your book. For the
Sure.
current Giants, in terms of the trade deadline, if you discount the Carsons and Bryce Eldridge and Bo Davidson, do we have anyone in the minor leagues who would be trade bait for anyone?
Yeah, the interesting thing about their system is there's a lot kind of I don't know how familiar you guys are with like the Arizona Summer League and the Dominican League and with that going on. And Joshua Gonzalez is a top 100 prospect. They're not going to trade those guys, but they have a lot of guys they're really excited about. They're just like 17, 18, 19 years old. And the risk of even if you wanted to include one of those guys is that's what happened with the Padres. That's how they got Fernando Tatis is I think he was like 18 and he turned into Fernando Tatis Jr. And like, so I think there is, if they wanted to swing big, I think they could because they do have, it would be risky, but they do have some really young, um, talented prospects that I think teams would have interest in. Beyond that, I think you're probably looking, they do have a little bit of excess bullpen depth and a little bit of excess, like Sean Jelly, I know he didn't throw well today, and Tristan Beck and guys like that. Those guys who maybe are a little bit forgotten here and have gone back and forth here, some of them would be like the fourth or fifth best reliever in another team's bullpen. So I think they do have the pieces to get it done. I just you are correct that there is a bit of a gap because Eldridge is untouchable, and they've already traded one of their young pitchers, and I think they're hesitant to trade more. So there's a bit of a gap. There's not really much at Double A and Triple A, other than the familiar names that we know, that the Lucianos, guys like that.
Well, thank you. Actually, let me just follow up on the Luciano. Do you think Luciano still has trade value?
I think he does. I mean, he's 23. One thing that for me is really interesting is he's going to be out of options after this year, which means if you're the Giants, even though it probably will hurt to give up, you kind of have to at some point, unless you think he's going to be on your opening day roster next year. You're just wasting it. One thing I always hear from executives that I talk to is just age. I mean, it's if someone's still 23, I guarantee you there are still a lot of scouts around baseball who watched Marco when he was 18 and fell in love with him and think the Giants have totally screwed him up and think they can fix him.
Uh-huh.
So I would not be surprised at all if someone had a lot of interest in trying to, I've talked to multiple scouts over the last few years who said just put the kid in the outfield. And it took the Giants forever to do that. But I think there are a lot of scouts that like him. They just feel like the Giants went about it the wrong way.
Right, now
Mm.
that makes sense. About your book, other than the stars that you discuss, who would be the most interesting non-star that you're talking about in your book?
I've been asked that at a couple of signings, and I keep joking that people who are maybe not as familiar with the Giants will read it and be like, "There's a lot of Matt Duffy in here." In the 2016 chapter, I find I've always found that season remarkable. I mean, how good they were, and then how bad they were, and to lose the way they did in the postseason. And the Duffy Moore trade was a big deal. So I think he's the guy who stands out. Just as I framed that entire season around Matt and his story in that trade and what it did to the clubhouse. So he would probably be an example of somebody where you look at maybe his baseball card and you look at the number of words he got and go, this maybe doesn't totally match.
That's nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alex, where in the book does your feelings about Mr. Farhan show
Well,
up? And you've been with the team now, and Buster Posey takes over. I know it's not going to be a 1 year fix. He's in for the long haul, but you've got to see a totally different atmosphere on the team, and not this constant roster shuffle and pinch hitting in the second inning and openers. I mean, if the Giants fall on their face the rest of the year, it's been pleasurable just to see like him bringing some class and other things back to Giant baseball. In my eyes, I might be, wrong, but that's me.
well, I don't want to get booed, but I didn't like fully disagree with everything he did. So you asked me about Sunday. I would, there's a world in which a bullpen game is just the best way to go for 2 or 3 weeks for them, and I think people might be upset about it. But I also, it's been an interesting season because they didn't make a roster move for like a month, and they've been very, very patient, and it's on purpose because Buster believes in continuity. I think there's a lot to be said for just the positive vibes in the clubhouse, and we've we've talked to young players who go, if I had done this last year, I would have been optioned the next day. And that's totally fair and totally correct. I also think sometimes you look up and you go, I heard you guys talking about Jung Hoo Lee earlier when I was waiting, and you go, there's a lot of patience and at times maybe too much patience with this group as well. So I don't know that I always kind of come down in the middle. I don't know that what they're doing now is 100% right and what they did before was 100% wrong. I do know the players are happier. I know the attendance is up about 2,000 per game. I know people just generally within the organization are happier, and um, from a clubhouse perspective, from a vibes perspective, from just happiness, I guess, and the fan base's happiness, I think it has been very different. But I would also say that ultimately this is about proving that Buster can win, right? And he was aggressive in a lot of ways in the offseason, and it took a long time for Willie to get going. And Justin Verlander, that contract is probably one they don't feel great about. We'll see what Devers looks like in a few years. So For me, I'm like, this is ultimately combustor. He's doing it a completely different way, but is it going to be right? I'm not sure.
Harvey, you're up.
Alex, couple of quick questions about the present Giants. Have
Yeah,
you interviewed Rafael Devers?
I have. Yeah.
What is your take on him?
I think he is not. He's not Willy Adames. I mean, he doesn't want to do. He hits 2 home runs today. Anybody who watched a game probably noticed he doesn't do the post game show. He's not gonna. I don't think he's gonna be that accessible. He seems like a very happy guy. He seems happy to be here. He seems like he gets along great with his teammates. Everything that we had heard coming from Boston, which is uh, he doesn't necessarily want to be the face of the franchise, doesn't necessarily want to be the leader of the clubhouse. I think that all seems true to me, but I would also say that that is why I think this is going to be a good fit because Willie Adames wants to do all of that. And like Willie, I know when they were in Oakland, he did the post game show 2 nights in a row, and he talks to the media whenever. He is the team leader. He will do everything. So I think that's why Devers. I think it'll work because in Boston, some of it was expected because he had come up through the system and he had been the homegrown guy, and they had given him a huge contract, and it was like, well, no, we expect to see you. We expect to hear from you. We expect you to be the leader of the clubhouse. Here, I don't think there's that expectation at all, and I think that'll make him more comfortable.
When he played first base the other night, I'm looking at it on a TV screen 3,000 miles away. I'm in New York.
Mhm.
I refuse to tell Gary when I'm going to turn 80, but it will be in the next couple of months.
September.
I saw Willie when I was 8 here in New York. That's Willie Mays. That's the only Willie I know. But Rafi Devers looked smooth at first base. I was surprised with all the media discussion. And one of my favorites, Will Clark, saying that Rafi didn't want to take uh, teaching from Will. He looked smooth at first base. He reportedly had never played first base at all in the major leagues.
Or in the minors. Yeah, look, I've watched him from the day after he got here, take grounders at first. He has put the work in quietly. It hasn't been, I think he was, and I think Will actually came out and said this. He was trying to avoid some of if you take grounders at first base at Oracle Park during batting practice, you are right in front of the Red Sox dugout. So he was trying to avoid what would have been a pretty big media storm, I think. The other thing is he's been, as you can see during games, he's pretty hobbled by the groin and by the back. So I was a little surprised at first, and then I realized it's 96 degrees in Atlanta, and physically he probably feels pretty good as opposed to a night game at Oracle. And I think, yeah, I agreed he looked smooth. I said the same thing about Casey Schmidt when he moved over. You guys know this watching a ton of baseball. There's no reason why anyone who's played third base their whole life, if you put them at first, they can't figure it out pretty quickly. And the difficult part about that is going to be runner on third, runner on first. He gets a ground ball. Does he know what to do right away? Or does he know where to be on cutoff throws? Or if there's a snap throw from his pitcher, does he get back? But in terms of fielding ground balls and taking throws, there's no reason why he can't be smooth right away at that.
I'll finish up by pointing out that when Buster pulled the deal off, I got a half dozen calls immediately from my friends who were Yankee fans thanking me for getting him out of Boston.
I think you saw today. I mean, it's taken a while, but he's the type of hitter they haven't had a whole lot of. So, um, yeah, I got a call from a Red Sox writer the next morning, and he said a lot of what you've heard about him is true. He also is an absolutely incredible hitter. So,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, thank you.
Alex, again, before we take on more questions, Amazon, best way once, and you said it should be back in stock and will be available on paperback, correct?
Wherever you can find it, it's all the same to me unless I give it to you personally. So it's yeah, wherever you can find it, wherever you'd like to find it.
And if you find Alex at the stadium, bring it with you. He'll sign it, I'm sure, Alex.
Happily,
There you
happily.
go.
Yeah.
Don, you're up.
Thanks, Gary. Hey, Alex. Good to see you in person. I started working for the Giants as an usher this year, so I see you up in the press box all the time. I'm hoping to get a chance to meet you because I'm starting to write a book of my own.
Come say
So
hi.
tough life to have your book sell out within 2, 3 weeks. That's pretty good life. I'm curious, kind of on a personal note. I've been lucky enough to interview some of the Giants. Interviewed Shay and a couple other folks from the
Mm.
Giants, and I'm really curious about the different life for a beat writer, the way you're covering the Giants today versus like say 10, 20 years ago with the multimedia approach. And I'm curious from your perspective doing this for a career, do you see this as kind of a long-term thing you're going to be in? And how difficult is it to be both a beat writer and a podcast star and a YouTube video guy and all those things? I mean, it's a lot of different balls in the air, and I'm just curious. And writing books, best-selling books, how is it different? And do you talk to some of your colleagues who maybe didn't have to do all this when they were coming up in the business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've talked a lot too. I mean, I was mentored in a lot of ways by Henry and John and Andrew Baggerly and Chris Haft, and heard a lot of stories about, you know, they were one story I found when I went to that Giants archives was a story from I think it was 1962, and it was a beat writer who was writing his story while he was on the plane with the team coming back from Los Angeles, which is just a completely foreign concept now. But even, you know, the writers who are 10, 15 years before me, they traveled with the team. If someone had a scoop, you would wake up and find out the next morning in the newspaper, not 30 seconds later on social media. I think that even in my time, it's changed a lot and how quick everything is, and that's part of where I go like you can get something up on YouTube in 10 minutes if you want. We'll tape a podcast as fast as we can, and we can have that up right away. And it could be, you know, within an hour after a trade, someone could be driving in their car and listening to me and Cole Kuiper break it down. So it changes even year by year, and it's changed a lot for me. And one of the previous guys said he won't say when he turns 80. I will say I turned 40 recently, and that changes a little bit. Yeah, um, it changes my approach a little bit. And Gary mentioned I have a 2-year-old at home, so but it's been interesting because I think probably 10, 15 years ago, a lot of what I do now wouldn't be possible. But I mean, Monday I'm not in Atlanta. I wanted to be home with my kid, and Monday I was on the pre and post game show from the same spot. Just did what we're doing right now. Just was on live TV. So I think it's becoming a lot. I'm really curious to see in like 5 years how many beat writers in general and how many beat writers on the Giants beat are traveling more than like 30, 40 road games a year. I think you're seeing more and more around the country. It's expensive, and there's an understanding that maybe the bang for the buck is no longer there. So I'm curious to see where all that. I wouldn't be shocked if in like 3 years you see most beat writers are working like every home game and are doing like a third of the road games.
Yeah, talking to some of the old guys, I've been thinking it's almost like a coach. You could make about 10 years on the road as a beat writer, and then you just if you wanted to have a family, forget about it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you burn out after that. But it's so different now that with all the media, mixed media and things.
Yeah, I mean, to your point about how long, I never thought, I used to joke with Henry. I started when I was 26, and I would joke with Henry, who was much older than me, and I'd go have dinner. I'd say, I'm going to go to law school at some point. I'm not going to be doing this beyond, and you know, here we are. So, now I'm like, I don't know what else I would ever do.
So maybe you can answer this question. I've asked couple of guys I talked to about people I've talked about. How can it be in this internet age that when you get a chronicle the next morning, they don't have the games from the previous night when they used to be able to do that in the old days all the time?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I worked at the Mercury News for a long time, and some of you in the Bay Area probably remember the giant building there on off of I think it was 880 where we were, where we'd be working on the newspaper and it would be being printed at the same facility, 300 yards from me, and the trucks would be there. None of that exists anymore. I mean, these are printed in different places that I think they're all printed in the same place, which is it's just it's a deadline thing. It's a newspaper thing. They all to get things printed and on doorsteps the next day. I believe current deadlines for some of the newspapers are like 4:30 or 5 to get something in the next day's paper. So you have no shot of even getting like an injury that happens during batting practice.
Well, hopefully I'll get a chance to be at the book signing soon with you. Looking
Yeah,
forward to reading the book. Thank you.
Now,
great to meet you.
Alex will send me when he's talking in the Bay Area, and I will send it out to you guys definitely. So,
Definitely.
He
listen,
was already here a couple places.
thanks, Charles.
Yep.
Jeff has his book. Look at that.
Look at
Thanks,
that.
Jeff. A lot of you have gotten much, much better at not talking and muting yourself. So I thank you. But a lot of you still don't know how to raise your hand with that yellow hand. Do any of you have a question? Because all you do is complain about the Giants. Here's your opportunity to ask your questions. Because if you don't ask, I will. All right, I'm going to ask a few more then, and hopefully somebody will say, raise their hand. Alex, so far this year, biggest disappointment in the whole team, not a player, just fielding, pitching, whatever it is you think. And who do you think has to, I don't want to say disappointing, I don't want you to put you on the spot, but who would you really want to see improve the rest of the year going forward?
I think it would be really, really game changing for them if they could get Jung Hui going at the top of the lineup again and have him in front of those guys and not be, I think Elliott's done a nice job when they put him there, and Yaz has really been a savior because Wade was so bad that they had to move him up there. But if they could have Jung Hoo Lee up in the leadoff spot every single game and have Adames and Chapman and Devers behind him in some respect, I think that would be game changing for him.
Was he miscast being put in like the 6th and 7th spot? I know at the beginning of the year he was sitting 3rd.
Yeah, I think he's adjusting a lot, and I heard you guys talking about it a little bit earlier, just chatting about, there probably is. You watch him run, and you watch the rare times when he does put a bunt down or when he has a swinging bunt, and you see how fast he is down the line, and it's like this should work. He should be a traditional leadoff hitter. They just haven't gotten him there yet.
And what on the team have you been disappointed in? I mean, I think a lot of us feel that the base running has just been atrocious.
The base running's been bad. I think defensively they've been pretty bad the last few weeks. That to me is I was watching Monday's game, and that's and I think they had a meeting after that. Like that's what I think is probably most disappointing to Buster and Bob is some of the base running mistakes and some of the defensive mistakes. I mean, Elliott on Sunday in Toronto, and then the play on Monday, allowing a guy to score from first. Those things you just, it's one thing for it to happen last year when you have like young players out there and they're running into each other. For it to be these veterans who are making some of these mistakes, I think that's been a little surprising.
Thank you. John Burbage, you're up.
Alex, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Since you're following the National League West, I'm curious, what do you expect the Dodgers and the Padres to do at the trade deadline? They're both struggling a bit, and the Dodgers obviously will be making big moves. Do you have any rumors or any ideas what's going to happen with those two teams?
Yeah, I think the Dodgers, they needed a reliever even before the last 3 days when they lost 2 relievers. I think was it last night or the night before they lost their closer. They lost Kasperius. They desperately need a reliever. I would expect, and given how much is invested in this team, I would expect them to probably get a couple of them. The Padres I'm absolutely fascinated by because they're the team the Giants have to chase down. And I think they have a general manager who is operating under the assumption that he might not be the general manager in November if they don't make the playoffs. So I think they're going to be very busy next week. We've seen them a couple times. They're definitely like a left fielder short. It sounds like there's a lot of Padres rumors. I think you're going to hear a lot on them in the next few days.
I have a sneaking suspicion the Dodgers are going to land either Clace from Cleveland or Batista from Baltimore. I live close to Baltimore, and they're about ready to get rid of a bunch of players here in Baltimore, and Batista's one of them.
Yeah, I think they're going to go and get someone else's closer and try to, it's funny because they signed a bunch of relievers in the offseason so they wouldn't have to do this. And now they're sitting here trying to figure out how to get a closer.
Let me ask you one other thing about the Giants pitching. They don't seem to be affected by TJ surgeries as much as other teams. Is there something in the development process that's different with the Giants than say with the Dodgers? Because the Dodgers seem to have somebody come down every day with Tommy John surgery.
I have been asking this question for years, and if there is a secret, they obviously don't want it out, and they don't even want to talk about it because it's almost like bad luck to even discuss the fact that they've been so healthy. But it has been remarkable. There have been very, very few, it's pretty much automatic today for pitchers, especially young pitchers, that you have Tommy John. Like you just expect with everybody at some point early in their career that it happens. And they've avoided it. And I don't know what their secret is. They will not let it out of the building, but we did a podcast a couple weeks ago giving first half awards out, and my MVP was Dave Greshner because if you look at how healthy the Giants have been compared to the Dodgers and the Padres and the Diamondbacks, that is one of the reasons they're still hanging around.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, there's something in the water. Okay, thank you, Alex.
Thank you, John. The lovely Miss Audrey West. Audrey, unmute. Audrey, you know what you're doing?
Sorry, would you guys believe I'm retired from Apple and I can't unmute my iPad here? Alex, I was going to ask about your book. Have you gotten any grief from anybody from any of the stories that you've written?
I have not gotten grief, but I don't want to say who it is, but one person blocked me on Twitter. So I think he got an early word that maybe he was mentioned, and it wasn't, I don't think I did anything bad, but I think he wasn't thrilled. So
that's pretty good.
So I'll take, that's the one. I assume it was book related because I don't know what else I did.
Audrey is a original season ticket holder from 2000 when the park just opened up.
Had season tickets since the 1990 season, and I don't know if you'll know the answer to this question, but I'm sorry for the people who don't live on this coast that don't go to the games here, but the noise at the ballpark, I realize I'm getting old, but the overmodulated music and those two announcers that drive me nuts, the two on-field guys, and even the wave is allowed to be done sometimes, which we don't do the wave in San Francisco. Do the players have any opinions about the noise and the flashing lights and all that stuff, or do they just block it out?
I think they would probably tell you that it's a lot louder at Dodger Stadium, and the lights are flashing a lot more in San Diego, and it's everywhere now. There's certain places I knew I was getting older because the last time we went to LA, I was like, it's too loud here. We've gone too far. So I think the players generally are used to it. I would also say this year and this year especially, I've sensed more of like a party atmosphere at the ballpark, especially like Friday nights are just kind of insane now, which is great. They're selling out and they're big crowds and they're raucous crowds, but it's definitely a little bit different than it's been the last few years.
It's heavy metal personified.
Yeah, they have two crabby old people in the front row these days when we get there. I have to tell you,
I will also say that the host you mentioned, one of them is a good friend of mine, so I will give him a hard time.
Oh, I know who you're talking about, and just tell him he doesn't have to say umami the way he does. That's like a sore tooth with me now.
I will tell so they do that right when I'm doing the pregame show, and we've had to move away from DJ Umami because it's so loud. So
apologies to those of you who don't go to the ballpark, but out here, but we have these two on-field hosts that just try to get the crowd going and everything. So yeah, For us old folks, they can really drive you nuts.
I totally agree with you. My brain is, when I go to games, my brain is about to explode.
Yeah.
Alex, maybe 25 years, 23 years ago, I met Audrey through a giant virtual lounge where we would talk giant baseball. And when I got out there, we became real good friends. She's a great person, and a great Giant fan. Thanks,
I don't disagree with it. It is very loud at the ballpark.
Michael
Yeah.
Berlin from Los Angeles. You're up.
Home of the Devils, as we say here. Just a quick aside to the noise. I was at the game on Monday night, Minnesota, and someone said to me, "It is so damn loud in this place." I'm thinking, is it a function of our age? It makes me crazy. First of all, thank you, Alex, for joining us. I live and die Giant baseball, and I've died too many times. But this is the thing. You talked about base running and fielding. The thing that drives me craziest with this team is the unproductive at bats. Man on third and nobody out. Bases loaded, nobody out. We can't score. Guys are swinging from the heels, striking out. It makes me. I'm talking back to the screen. You know, give me your thoughts on that. It's like, how does your hitting coach say to these guys, make contact, bring in that run? We don't need a grand slam.
Yeah, I know a lot has been made of Pat. He's every single day he's with these guys, like doing situational stuff, and I don't understand why it hasn't gotten through. I think a lot of it is probably just ingrained in certain hitters, and it really stood out to me. I don't know how much you followed the draft last week, but the Giants basically only exclusively drafted guys who don't strike out and who make contact. And I hesitate to ever put too much on like this is a Buster Posey imprint or this is a organizational shift, but it certainly stood out a little bit that they really seem to target a certain type and target people who make contact and who, in theory, in those spots should, play pepper with the left field grass instead of trying to hit a 3-run homer.
Yeah. You mentioned, if Chapman and Devers and, Adames, those guys hit. When I watch the Dodgers, obviously they're loaded up top, but when they get to the 6, 7, 8, 9 guys, they're productive. You know what I mean? They
That's
bring
right.
in those guys, and it makes me doubly crazy that they do it and we don't.
Yeah, they do. And, what was it? The Blue Jays on Saturday, Friday and Saturday, like the 5 through 9 hitters were just wearing the Giants out. And yeah, there's probably some guys at the bottom of the lineup who you wish were a little more situationally aware, given where they are.
Yeah, I keep thinking, how do you coach them? How do you coach a guy to make contact as opposed to swinging and missing? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well,
I think
what
it's
role does Will Clark have? He was supposed to be a hitting coach to teach players to swing level and make contact. What role does he have today?
He's an instructor. I mean, he's mostly in the minor leagues. He's around the big league club probably every couple months, but he's mostly in the minor leagues working with guys.
I wanted to
Michael,
point, if I may, I wanted to point out about the media. I used to get the Chronicle every day because I could see the box score and the league leaders. The league leaders was generally on the weekends, but the box scores from even the previous night game was in the Chronicle. Once, even a day game, let's say it was a Saturday day game, it's not even in the Sunday Chronicle anymore. That's why I canceled the Chronicle, and I know the newspaper business is pretty much in the toilet these days, and everything is online. They even offered a 99 cents 3-month subscription to the Chronicle, and I turned it down.
Well, I'm
you
friends with
got ripped
Susan and
off, Mars. They
Shaman.
offered it to me for a quarter.
The LA Times, by the way, is the same thing. They don't have box scores anymore either.
Nobody does.
Changing world. I'm going to ask another question. Fast forward, Alex. I know we're still in the race. 2026 is the plan for Devers and Eldridge to share first base and designated hitter, or what do you foresee happening?
Yeah, I think so. If I would guess, I would say probably like 60-40, 70-30 Devers at first, because I think he's going to be better there. But they also don't want their top prospect to be a DH. So he's still playing a ton of first and he's improving, but both these guys are Eldridge we haven't seen yet, and Devers is signed for 8 more years. So and there's nowhere for either one of them to go. So I think that's the plan.
Devers has to learn footwork at first base.
Does anybody else have a question regarding Alex's book? Howard, go ahead.
Hi, Alex. People know me now as a Met fan, a diehard Met fan. When I was growing up in the 1960s, I was a diehard Giant fan after they, were in San Francisco. And I want to thank the Giants because they have prepared me for life as a Met fan. Because watching the Giants during the 1960s was gut-wrenching. Every year it was the Dodgers, and then the Dodgers again, and then the Cardinals, and then the Dodgers again, and then the Cardinals again. It drove me absolutely crazy. I was a kid then in not even high school yet, junior high school. And we had a lot of ex-Giant fans live in my neighborhood. I lived in the Bronx. And it was killing us to see what was going on now with the Giants in the West Coast. Every year getting wiped out by the Dodgers. Finally, when we beat them in 62 in the playoffs, the Yankees, the hated Yankees, beat us in Game 7, which I went home crying that day from school, as I've mentioned several times, to the group here. But being a Giant fan did prepare me for life as a Met fan. But the Giants in those days, you don't remember them because you weren't born yet. But I still remember people like Jim Ray Hart and Ed Bailey as catcher, and Pagan at shortstop, of course, McCovey first base, and all the Lou brothers, all three of them.
Tom Haller.
So as a Giant fan, it was frustrating, but, gradually I moved on to the Mets, and then 69 came along and I pretty much gave up on the Giants after that. But I will tell the Giant fans here that I became a fair weather fan again back in the early 2010, 12, 14, when they won it. I was so happy that they finally won it, even though I no longer rooted for them. And I did go to the trophy tours in New York City. So I have memories of the 60s in the Giants. I don't know. I know in your book you said it's not really your time yet. You're not stressing it as much as later on. But I was there in the 60s, like Gary, 3,000 miles away, but it was gut-wrenching. So it was a growing experience for me. My father had been a New York Giant fan. That's how I got it in my blood, in my genes. But I look forward to getting my hands on your book and read about maybe some of the old days and some of the more recent days. So,
thank you. Yeah, there is a chapter on 1962, and there's chapters on all 5 of their Hall of Famers. So a fair amount of that is covered.
Well, 62, but also the years they lost it.
Yeah.
Every year the Dodgers would beat them at the last day of the season or the next to last, and the Giants always went into slumps at the worst possible time. The June swoons and then the September swoons. It was, like I said, gut-wrenching. Still was fun.
Alex, like you mentioned about meeting Willie Mays, a lot of us New Yorkers were fortunate enough when the Giants brought the trophy here to meet him, and it was just an incredible thrill. Many of our members, had just seen him play and never met him in person, and it sent chills, and people were crying, and standing ovations. This was their guy, so it's just an amazing thing to see.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why the Giants had only won one pennant in the 60s was because defensively they weren't as apt as the Dodgers. And then there was Koufax and Drysdale. If you remember, Maury Wills could have a bunt single or a walk, steal second, go to third on a ground ball, come home on a sacrifice fly, and Koufax or Drysdale would pitch a shutout. And the Giants had a good pitching staff. They had what Horace Dunham said, Powder River, but they weren't defensively. They weren't even close to the Dodgers. And of course, Marichal was They had a great pitching staff, but with Koufax and Drysdale, it was just hard to overcome.
You know, I jumped for joy when Koufax retired at 66. I said, we're going to win it in 67. And Bob Gibson comes along, 67, 68. We were ecstatic when Koufax retired. At least we were in my neighborhood in Queens now. And, you know, Drysdale hung around. He had that great season in 69. So, but even without Koufax, we couldn't overcome the Dodgers.
I saw
Alex,
Koufax.
you got time for 2 more questions?
Oh yeah, I got 2 more, and then I'm going to run and take the
Terrific.
kid out before it gets too late. But
Yep, Judge Jim, you're up.
Okay, thank you. Alex, thanks for joining us tonight. I want to get back to the Devers trade for a second. You get to know these guys, so a little bit about the human side. Kyle Harrison, someone I really liked. I would have made the trade in a heartbeat. I don't think it was a bad trade or a mistake. But for a guy to go get ready to be pitching on Sunday night, Giants Dodgers, and that later that week pitching a AAA game in Rochester, New York. I saw one clip of him after it looked like after he was just told about the trade, and he really looked shaken. What can you tell us about Kyle as a person and how he reacted to the trade?
yeah, I'm a tremendous person. I really, really, really enjoyed getting to know him, and those are weird because you get into like beat writer mode where you're analyzing everything, and then you kind of drive home that night, and it was like, oh, I thought I was going to cover Kyle for the next 7 years. So that's happened a few times. That's probably why there's so much Matt Duffy in my book, because I got to know Matt Duffy so well and was sad when he left. But Kyle's a great person. I know the Giants are very high on him, and I think he pitched pretty well last night. So it hopefully gets a shot here soon. I always like, sometimes there's a lot of people I would say root for when they leave, but he's like very near the top of the list for me.
Yeah, I know right before the trade, Kruko was asked to rate some of the young pitchers and who had the highest ceiling, and he mentioned Kyle and thought that he could turn around and really pick it up and be like you said, a part of the rotation for many years to come. So a little bit of a surprise to see him go, but he looked personally saddened by the move, and I think he's a West Coast guy and would prefer to stay with his team.
Yeah, I think he was sad at first, but I haven't talked to him. I've talked to people around him who are, they think he's going to get a great opportunity here.
Thanks, Judge. Ed, take us home. Ed, you're muted.
I'm definitely a Giants fan, but I do watch a lot of Mets games being here on the East Coast. Seems to me the Mets are doing a lot of running, and they're also defensively throwing out a lot of runners. And the other day I saw a pitch out by a team. We don't see that very often. Do you have any opinion on this year's running game? And beware of the Mets running.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time I saw a pitch out. So I haven't, I'll be honest, a lot of times with these teams, I don't, East Coast teams especially, when they're playing, I'm in the clubhouse or on the field, so I haven't seen a lot of the Mets. I know they've been struggling a little bit lately, but I don't know that much about the Mets just until they get here. We see them twice, I think, in the next 2 weeks. So,
but it's running game in general. Do you have an opinion on that right now?
I think Patrick's done a pretty nice job overall. Adames, I think, is pretty good around the bag. I think so. They should be pretty well positioned. There's been some other teams that you go back to opening day, like Ellie De La Cruz didn't even try during that series. So they're well positioned usually to kind of shut that down.
I hope they do.
Thanks, Ed. Alex, last thing, what happened to Birdsong?
I don't know. I hope they kind of reset with him. And, this feels like one of those where maybe there's a few bullpen sessions and, I keep telling people I think he made like 32 starts, 38 starts in the minors. So this is all relatively new to him, but that was hard to watch.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gents, let's give it up for Alex Pavlovic. Alex, again, you guys could view him on podcast, YouTube, brand new book. Get it? I can't wait to get it once it's available again. But Alex, thanks so much for taking the time tonight. We appreciate it. Best of luck the rest of the season. Best of luck with the book. Take care of that boy. And great speaking to you and great seeing you.
I will. Thanks, Gary. Thank you, everybody.
Be well, guys.
Thanks.
I'm going to shut down the recording. Again, we will meet next Tuesday night with Bill Swisher, talking about the John McGraw marker dedication up in Truxton, New York. So let me just stop the recording.